Put it on your calendar. Make sure it's in green ink because every Friday it's Ryan Snyder on the BWI Daily edition. I'm your host, Thomas Frank Carr. He's going to give you his recruiting insight. You know him as the Blue White Illustrated recruiting insider with all the information on who's interested in coming to Penn State, who Penn State is interested in. But every Friday he gives you the information you really need. And that is his best bets coming up later. The places to put your money this weekend in college football. So Ryan, welcome to the show. Excited to get into it today.
You're the only person who's ever really called me an insider. So thanks, T. Frank. I appreciate it. I call myself recruiting analyst, but I like insider. You keep going with that. I feel like I'm Adam Schefter or somebody important.
You are. To me, you are. You're
Thanks.
the fountain of information I need to do my job, so you're my insider. I don't care. Yeah, I think it's appropriate. You got the inside information. So we're going to get into a little bit of that today. But the first thing, when it comes to this week over at Blue White Illustrated, you've had a couple of articles, but one I want to get into today specifically. And if you want to see the full thing, you want to see what both he and Greg Pickle talked about on their recruiting roundtable. It's the guys that are gonna commit to Penn State next. The guys that you think are the most likely of the commitments for. Is it the class of 2023? Is it specifically those guys? Okay.
Yep, just 2023. We're pretty much tapped out in 2022. I can only talk about Jayshon Barham for so long, especially because he doesn't talk. So I can only say so much. Yes, yeah. I think Penn State's in a good spot. Yes, I think he's gonna maybe potentially go visit Florida. So I'm stuck in a pickle there. I don't know what to tell people, but yes, 2023 we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So the guys you think from 2023 that might be the next to commit. So let's go through the list. And again, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com if you want to see the full thing. And of course, if you want to be an insider, he has a recruiting chat up and he'll have his mailbag. All kinds of great stuff coming from Ryan. And you want to go to bwi.rivals.com/subscribe to get in on the information. So take us through the guys that you think are going to be the next possible commitments. And then when we get into them, a couple of positions I want to talk about. Specifically as they relate to Penn State proper.
Yeah. So, I mean, Greg and I basically just picked a player each on offense and a player each on defense that made sense to us, right? And we narrowed it down to 4. There's really kind of 5 guys I'm watching, so I'll hit on the majority of them here. Well, I'll start with Joey Schlaffer, Michael Mennett's half-brother. I mean, we've talked about this guy multiple times on this podcast and on Greg and I's podcast, which we do on Tuesdays. 6'6", 210, tight end out of Exeter Township in Reading. Penn State offered a couple weeks ago. It came up for that Ball State game. Ty Howell went and watched him the night before, and we knew that when he got that offer, it's I don't want to say we could pencil him in because you never can do that in recruiting, but with those family ties, it's just kind of one of those things where I think everybody would say 80-20, it feels
right.
Like it's kind of a matter of time. Now, he does have a good relationship with the coaches at Tennessee, went down there in July, I believe it was like July 30th range or something like that, and had a good time down there. And I think that's definitely a school to keep an eye on. But, that was obviously before Penn State offered to, and now the Nittany Lions, they seem to be right there. I'm actually going to go see Joey tonight. He's playing Nick Singleton and Governor Mifflin, so I'm really looking forward. This is my first time seeing Joey, first time seeing Nick too this year. But really, just trying to get an eye on both of those guys. I expect Nick to be awesome like he's been all year. And Joey's been great too. That's a good catch right there in the highlight. He's put up some pretty good stats and, just looking forward to watch what he can do going over top of guys. But, I don't know if he's a true tight end at the next level from a blocking perspective. I mean, he's more like an oversized maybe the right word, but just a bigger wide receiver, somebody you can throw jump balls to. So looking forward to getting an eye on him. But, again, half-brother Michael Mennett, incredibly close family ties to Penn State. This is somebody who, I don't know if he's going to commit in the next couple of weeks, but, something within 2021 before the end of the year wouldn't surprise me at all.
So it's an interesting, and I want to pause here for this particular conversation because you mentioned his blocking skills, and I'm interested in the fact, and this is always a tricky thing because it's about what's available, right? So you're always going to be chasing kind of a thread that might not be there, trying to project what Penn State is doing at certain positions. But if you look at Mega Barnwell, you look at Jerry Cross, and I would even say Joey Schlaffer now fits into that category of guys who played actual tight end in high school, guys who are bigger. Cross is 6'6", 260. Barnwell is pushing 6'7", and he, was up to 250. You've said he's, down, in the 250s. He's been up to 270
he
at
was
points.
up to 270, and now he's down to like 255, to clarify.
So he's big dudes that, have that blocking potential. And with being the half-brother of Michael Mennett and playing tight end in high school, is Penn State shifting more towards this, or is this what I said earlier and kind of just what's available and guys that fit their particular what they look for in recruits?
It's definitely what's available to some degree. To me, like Matthias can grow into an offensive tackle if he continues to grow. I mean, really, from here on out, it's really just what's the best word? Just kind of body management. If he wants to keep growing and projecting, like his body will grow. But if he really wants to be a tight end and starts, I don't want to say he's not eating well, because he is.
Yeah.
But just it's just a whole different way of training. To not explode and get way bigger. So for Joey, Joey, there's a lot of comparisons with Zach Kuntz with Joey. And Kuntz is actually doing really well down at Old Dominion now. I know he didn't get much of a chance here, but he's doing pretty well with Ricky Ronnie. So I just see with Joey, I just see somebody who hasn't quite tapped into his potential physically yet. If he really gets into the gym and packs on muscle, there's a lot that he can do there. But I see Jerry Cross kind of can do a little of both. I see Matthias more of kind of maybe a blocking tight end, or maybe a potential offensive tackle. Matthias doesn't want to hear that, so I hope he doesn't watch this. He'll be mad at me probably for saying that. And then Joey just kind of feels like more one of those guys where, you can split out wide. And, he'll block a little bit maybe on the edges. But, I just personally don't see Joey putting his hand in the ground too often down the road. Now, of course, I say that. He could be 245 here in a couple of years and look like the Hulk. So, it's just so hard to project. Especially when you get into DJ's system and what he's able to do as a strength coach. So I think it's just more so what's available. They're looking for guys who can high point balls and, pretty good athletes and also high character guys. And everybody in this group kind of fits that.
Yeah, and I reserved, because I said very clearly in my film room what I thought of Matthias Barnwell and where I think he should play, and I don't want to keep beating that drum because I know how he feels, and he's got the right, he's earned that to be that the player he wants to be. So that's just my aside question on the tight ends, because I'm always trying to look at what are we trying to achieve if I'm looking from Penn State football's perspective and trying to read the tea leaves of, not only is it the best player available, but are we prioritizing something over another in recruiting? So that just an interesting.
They would love to get Theo Johnsons every year,
right?
But like Theo Johnsons don't grow on trees, and well, there are some out there, but many years they live in California or they live in Alabama, and they're not going to get these guys, So it's no coincidence. Yeah, Jerry Cross isn't really from Penn State's true traditional area in Milwaukee, but it's no coincidence that the majority of the guys that they're really pursuing, Neo Avery, for example, he's from DC. Nicholas Harbor is a total freak. This is the guy we've talked about many times. He's like a Saint Bolt, but he's from DC. There's no coincidence. It's not a coincidence, that these guys are from Penn State's area, and I think that's kind of where you start.
Okay, so the rest of the guys on the list, I didn't mean to derail us too much from that, but who are the other guys that you think are the possible next commitments for Penn State?
Yeah, just for offense, so we'll finish with Josh Miller. He's teasing a November 2nd announcement. He won't say what it is. There's definitely part of me that's like, oh, I've seen this before. Yeah. Tease an announcement for a month, and then it ends up being, top 12 schools, something that's not incredibly exciting. But what I will say with Josh is that it feels to me that he is definitely down to, or I don't want to say down to, but favoring Penn State and Clemson. I believe he just was at Clemson this past week, and he will come back to Penn State October 23rd. Or at least that's what he's planning to do. So let's see how that works out. And I think I kind of get the impression that I don't even know if Josh really knows exactly what he's going to announce on November 2nd. It's the anniversary of his dad passing away. So he wants to do something great with his family, which you love it, obviously respect it. So I think, maybe he's thinking about making a decision, but if he's not ready, maybe he'll just put out a top list of schools that day. So only Josh can really tell us exactly what he's thinking right now. But to me, I see Penn State and Clemson ahead of everybody else there. And then it's whether just kind of, he's ready to announce or not there. So that's why I put him on that list. I just, with something happening November 2nd, whenever you have a concrete date
Yeah.
and you have a player that Penn State's very interested in, it makes sense. So he'll probably be a guard at the next level. He's listed as a tackle right now in Rivals, 6'6", 323. I think he's a little bit shorter than 6'6". I don't have an exact number on him, but
Yeah.
just from me hanging out with him in Atlanta, I'm only like 5'8", so I'm not very good at heights and all that. But
you've been around a lot of 6'5" dudes.
I have, yes,
Yeah.
but I always look like just very small against them. But
Yeah.
I think it's probably a little more closer to 6'4", 6'5" is my point.
Okay.
But we'll see what happens with Josh. So I'll just roll right into the defensive guys real quick. We
Sure.
can get through them because I don't want to take forever. Phil Picotti. I've been calling him Pixiotti for the longest time. I've said sorry on Tuesday. I'll say it again. Sorry, Phil. I've been butchering your name for the longest time. But it's Phil Picotti. Look, another guy that just I feel like all signs point to Penn State here. He did just get a Notre Dame offer last night, which is interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a visit there at some point. But he's come up here 3 times since the summer. Really good-looking prospect. This is someone who's a 3-star on Rivals, and I think he needs to move up. Right now, I think he may be above Samaj Bridgman and Josiah Trotter on Penn State's board. I mean, that's the kind of player that we're talking about here. Back in the summer, if you asked me that, I thought, maybe he's probably in that next tier. You have Tamir, you have Josiah, you have Samaj, Jordan Hall, maybe somebody above him. I feel like Phil is right there now. Tamir Robinson would still be my top guy, but Phil's second, third, maybe. I mean, he's somebody that Penn State absolutely loves, and whenever I speak with some people about it, they wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You guys got to move him up. And his film looks really good. So,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. The little bit I watched, I was very impressed. He pops off tape with some really impressive plays.
Yeah, he's explosive, man. I mean, he can hit. I mean, there's a lot to like here. So 6'3", 225. I mean, that tells me he's definitely going to be a middle linebacker to the next level.
Yeah.
And Penn State needs that. We'll see where Kobe King, ultimately fills out, and of course Tyler Elson's there, but he fits a need for the 2023 class, and I just see someone that eventually makes a lot of sense. From Penn Ridge, there's actually some comparisons between him and Nick Tarburton. To me, he's a little bit more athletic than what Nick was, and of course Nick ended up at defensive end, so it makes sense. But a lot to like there, and I think he's a player that Penn State fans should obviously be following closely, and I can see him being a commitment before the end of 2021, whether it's in the coming weeks, whether it's in November or early December. I don't know exactly when, but it makes sense that he will be on board sooner than later. I want to just mention 2 more guys quick. I'll make them quick. Cam Lenhart from IMG Academy, 6'3", 240. I have him as a D end right now. I could see him growing into a D tackle. Obviously, I don't get to watch IMG incredibly closely. I mean, they were on 1 or 2 games this year. Of course, you have some highlights up here, but like watching full games and really trying to get a feel for what his strengths and weaknesses are. But look, it's really hard to get to State College from IMG Academy when your parents aren't living with you. So when you fly up to State College twice in the span of 2 weeks to watch the Auburn game and the Indiana game, that just screams that how interested you are in Penn State. So it costs a lot of money to make those trips. It takes a lot of time, flying to New York, driving to State College, back to New York, flying back to IMG, and then do that twice in 14 days. I mean, just it screams that Penn State's the favorite here. So he hasn't really visited any other schools. He went to Boston College and Rutgers when he was, I believe, a freshman back in 2019, but no other visits since the summer. Of course, he was at Penn State in the summer too. So we're talking about 3 straight back-to-back Penn State visits. He is talking about maybe a Michigan State visit in November, but I just see somebody who's clearly favoring Penn State here, and this is someone who Penn State really likes a lot. So another guy who, if he committed on December 15th or something like that, wouldn't surprise me at all. Just one last guy I want to mention here is Khalil Ali, safety prospect from Ben Salkin in New Jersey. I've been talking about Khalil a good bit lately. I think his film's been pretty good, and I think he has real interest in maybe committing sooner than later. I kept him out of the article because I think Penn State's still trying to figure out whether they want to take him right now or still continue gathering information. But he's definitely a player who I think is clearly favoring Penn State. And if he gets that green light, he could easily, he could commit this month, I feel like. It's just whether Penn State wants to continue gathering information. And, I think the main thing is they're trying to figure out, what what he brings from a speed perspective.
Right.
I don't know 100% know that, but that's just kind of my guess from watching his film. And I just know it's been something like as a scout or somebody in my industry, like we talk about, amongst my peers, I guess, is, how fast is Khalil. But I think he's an awesome kid. Grades are great, high character guy, and his film, man. I mean, he's been really impressive this year. A lot of nice interceptions, really good in pass breakups, and been pretty aggressive in his tackling. I mean, he's showing real improvement, and he's becoming a guy now where originally I was like, he'll probably have to camp to really solidify it. And with his improvements on film this year, he's somebody who I think he's kind of right there on the bubble, man.
Right.
So I mentioned these other four, but I want to mention Khalil because if he gets that green light, I mean, compared to these other four, I think he is the one who wants to commit, I guess, the soonest, if that makes sense. So
yeah,
keep an eye on all five of these guys, man. Now that I put this out there publicly, I'm sure it'll be somebody else in the 2023 class. That's where we're estimating, or these are the guys we're guessing on, I guess you would say, to make moves here maybe in the coming months.
Well, I'm gonna keep this, and I'm gonna make sure I have this list handy because I'm gonna have some work to do if any of these guys are gonna commit for a T. Frank's film room. Put a pin in the conversation about speed because I'm fascinated. Something you said on your recruiting podcast earlier this week with Greg Pickle. I want to get into that in depth a little bit, but the first thing I want to get to, because it's going to lead into a nice long conversation about 2022, is the new rule that the NCAA has allowed teams to replace up to 7 players that transfer with a recruiting class. Can you take me through this rule and how it works? Because there's some things that you and I were talking earlier that I didn't realize about this, and I think it's important that people know what is going to happen this winter when it comes to transfers and this new rule.
Okay. Well, first off, I will never claim to be an NCAA rule expert. Okay. I've been trying to follow.
Nobody is.
Oh, I know. I've been trying to follow NCAA rules for a decade now. And, I can make it sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I'll be honest, most of the time I don't. But I think I know the bullet points here of what this rule really is about. And it's pretty simple when you think about it. With the early signing period now, okay, guys are always signing, that second, third week in December. And before or after they sign, that's when the majority of transfers end up leaving. You know, the season ends at the end of November. They have a couple talks with the coaches, and then they decide sometime around Christmas time or after bowl season, hey, I'm going to start looking elsewhere. Well, when you have your class already signed and you have 25 players already signed and you're at that limit, and then you can't add high school kids, you're cornered into just adding transfers. And if you can't get someone to transfer to your school, well, now you're going to be stuck with 80 scholarships. Some schools have 78, and they want the opportunity to be able to get up to 85. Give high school kids who they want to add, but they just couldn't because of that 25 limit. That's what this is about. This is about allowing schools to say, okay, I've had X amount of guys transfer out. I can fill half of them with transfers. But I have these extra 2, 3, 4 scholarships, and I have these high school kids who want to join, but you're not letting me because I'm at this 25 cap that you guys imposed on us a couple years ago. So this gets rid of that for at least one more year. Now, I do think probably it'll be continued for at least a couple years, or it'll be put into a bigger, I don't want to call it legislation, this isn't Congress, but a bigger piece of bigger
it's close. It's pretty close.
just some sort of a new rule where that helps with managing rosters, because it was a real issue, especially when you add in extending another year for everybody pretty much in NCAA Division I athletics. So that's what this is about. The big question I know Penn State fans have is it going to impact Penn State this year?
Yeah.
No, unfortunately, not really. The way it works out, with Penn State taking a small class last year, remember they only had it was one of the smaller classes in the country. That's why we finished in the 30s and everybody was upset. But because of that, they're able to take a bigger class this year. And they already kind of had the early enrollees backdated enough where, you could go over that 28, maybe get to 29, especially when you include a Spencer Rowland, who, should be considered one of the commitments in this class. So I don't see it having a big impact on Penn State. For it to have a big impact on Penn State, they would have to have some transfer attrition that we haven't seen already. And we already saw 1 year, what was it, like 3 years ago, maybe 2, I think it was 2 or 3, where, it was like a dozen or so guys. I mean, it would kind of take even more than that for Penn State to really have a or have this rule really help Penn State. So I don't see it having much of an impact. Maybe one person if you have quite a bit of attrition, and even then they probably wouldn't be able to add someone maybe until the January period. We have those couple weeks between early signing period and actual national signing day. So it's a good rule for a lot of schools, but I don't think it's going to impact Penn State much.
So that's what I was wondering is because adding Amari Evans and Andre Roy, once you were really it felt like there's no room at the inn. What I was curious about is that related to this new rule? But you're saying it's more about what happened in 2020 than it is, or in 2021, more so than what this new rule is. So do you think Penn State, if they had the option to, should add more using that rule? Do you think that they should go in on this if they want?
I just don't think they have the option to. I think because of the 85 scholarship limit, that's something I should hit on. They'll be able to keep adding guys, sure. But they're going to get to that 85 limit, and they're going to be stuck into a crappy situation because they're going to have all these kids signed, but then they're going to have to find places, they're going to have to find scholarships to give, and there's only one way you can really do that. And I don't need it, Penn State fans don't want to hear it, but it's what schools do sometimes and they don't renew scholarships. Penn State doesn't want to do that. Penn State's never been one of those schools to just say, hey, buddy, you're fourth on the depth chart. Snip. That's not how James Franklin does things. And it matters, man. It does matter on the recruiting trail. When you stick the guys and you give them every opportunity to prove themselves. So that's just because of that 85 limit. It's hard for me to see 32 kids. They require just a ton of attrition, and even on top of that, then they probably would have to pool scholarships from a walk-on they gave this past year or something like that. And it's just that's
you don't want to head down a bad road.
Yeah, people look at that as dirty, and James does a very good job of trying not to go down that road. So just it would require just kind of a change in how Penn State's always done things, and that stuff always happens. There's always something new that surprises me, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, and so one of the parts about this that I think is important when we talk about this particular rule is that one of the things people keep asking me, and one of the things that I keep hearing is about what happens at quarterback next year. And if you haven't checked it out yet, yesterday we talked to Mike Yurcich. The media had the availability with Mike Yurcich. It's on our YouTube channel. You gotta go watch it. He is awesome to listen to. But what he talks about in that just brief conversation about what it's like to play quarterback, just take that as 1% of what it is to be a quarterback. And then everyone that's asking me, is Alar going to be the starter next year? Should Drew Alar start? I think you've got to also consider, with a big class, there is going to be attrition. As you pointed out, statistically, it has been consistent. You've got to look in the transfer portal for competition at that starting quarterback position because you need to find a guy who has played at the college football level or at least been in the college football system, because it's a rare exception of a guy who can walk right out of high school and onto a college football field. Do you think that they're going to add or at least look at a quarterback in the transfer portal this year?
It just all depends on who comes. That's what's hard about it. Look, if history, if you look back on the last couple of years, there's going to be 3, 4, 5 guys who Penn State has interest in. Now, without Sean Clifford on the roster, I think those guys have a lot more interest, especially after watching this year and what Mike Yurcich has done in the past compared to last year, and everything being kind of stagnant. With Sirocco and just the whole offense as a whole. But I would also add that, man, if there's ever a player who could potentially come back, it would be Clifford. And that's the one thing that I'm curious to see, because look, he's playing really well right now. Does Clifford become a fifth, sixth round potential draft pick guy after the season? I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert with that stuff. But say he plays really well this season and he's still someone who is considered undrafted. Does he come back? Because to me, I think I'm starting to see enough now where I think maybe it's possible. I don't expect any other senior to come back next year. I really don't. But he's the one person who, even before the season, we thought, well, it kind of makes sense if he really plays well. Now, we'll just assume that he leaves. Yes, we will. And if he does, I think you have to consider a transfer. I mean, I don't see how they couldn't. just with the current situation. So I don't think having Drew Allar as a freshman is wise. Yeah, he could play, but I just think I think he's a lot better off, if not redshirting, at least like, well, yeah, he'd have to redshirt as a quarterback. But I just think you're always a lot better off when you get a year or two under your belt and then go from there. So
yeah,
a lot of my colleagues have been like kind of thinking, yeah, it's possible. I'm hesitant to jump on that boat when I know the transfer portal is possible. And then, oh, yeah, by the way, Clifford can technically come back.
Yeah, and also we're completely discrediting the guys that are currently on the roster that have been recruited by Penn State and Christian Veilleux and Taquan Roberson. So you tweeted at me the other day when Drew Allar was on ESPN2 and said they were comparing him to Josh Allen. And like here's the deal. I'm just gonna roll with it now. And you want to know why? I never do this right. It's always, as a Bills fan, I can tell you there are some things about Josh Allen I haven't loved. So yeah, maybe there's some stuff that in Drew Allar's game that he needs a year and a half working with Mike Yurcich as a quarterback coach and a developer of quarterbacks to fix in his game. And I'm gonna be the wet blanket, the rain cloud on your parade. He's not going. Like I saw it on the film on 2 weeks ago. He's not a out of the box starter. He's got tons of potential. He is obviously a great football mind. He's got everything they want. I just think you need to work with him and some Mike Yurcich coaching to get some of those wrinkles out of his game that lead to some inconsistencies. You don't want to put him in a bad situation where bad habits become concrete. And if you're hoping, and I always do this, I do this to myself, really. I'm squashing a particular hope of yours because I don't think it's a healthy one for what you want long term if you're a Penn State football fan. So that's what I'm trying to caution Penn State fans about with Drew Allar. That's all. I just want to say once again,
don't disagree. Yeah,
give it some time. If you
want to go to a New Year's Six Bowl next year, I mean, I don't know if it's a healthy recipe, or
right.
God forbid, even the playoffs or whatever. But
right,
we'll see, man. A lot of people think it's possible. I certainly don't think it's impossible. I just
right.
If you want to have success, I think there's better ways to getting there. And right now, it would be you develop the guys below, or a transfer, or maybe some reason Clifford comes back. So yeah, we will see.
Yeah, I wanted to have that conversation today because I think it's a really important one when it comes to this particular recruiting class and this new rule. You got to keep a couple of things in mind when it comes to the shifting tectonics of the roster and of the 85 scholarship. So we don't have to spend all day on that, but the last thing I want to talk about before we get into your best bets was another thing you talked about on your recruiting podcast earlier this week with Greg Pickle. And by the way, subscribe to the YouTube channel please. And wherever you get your podcast, because we are pumping out all kinds of awesome information. And it was a quick little thing you were mentioning with Greg. And I want to roll around in this because this is the stuff I love when it comes to like the ideas of how Penn State views stuff. You're talking about Kenny Johnson, and I'm going to put up his highlights here. That maybe he's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's got a lot of great skills. And you said Penn State thinks guys can improve in speed by a certain percentage point. Can you take me through what you meant by that and kind of the idea behind that? Because that's super fascinating to me.
So Kenny came up here this year, this summer, and he ran a 4.7. Okay. And basically how it's been kind of explained to me is that, when they see someone who, this was sophomore going into junior year, and they see someone who comes up and runs in, they still feel like with 2 years of, good solid weight training, working with a speed trainer, whomever it may be. And look, when you're a Division I prospect, you need to be doing all this stuff if you want to reach your potential before you even get on campus. Okay. Their mindset is when they see a younger guy, and really this is for pretty much 2023, 2024, and even 2025. If they come up and they run something, sub 5, but 4.7, 4.8, somewhere in that ballpark, they feel like with proper training, that 15, 16, 17-year-old can potentially improve by a tenth every year. Okay, before he gets to campus. So for someone like Kenny Johnson, with another summer, and then he would enroll the summer after that, they feel like if he properly trains and works with the right specialists and really works on form and things like that, he could really realistically be kind of like more of a 4-5 guy when he gets here.
Okay.
And when you're 18, 19, speed wise, yeah, you can still improve, but you're still kind of usually kind of reaching your ceiling there. I mean, I'm sure Jahan Dotson's a little bit faster than he was in high school, but
yeah.
Basically their mindset is, okay, he came up around a 4.7. We see a lot we like on film. Let's offer him because we feel like, that there's still room to improve in his running. So that's really what I meant by that. And it's always usually just more so for the 14 and the 15-year-olds who come up.
Okay. So you're not expecting a guy who's a junior, like let's give the example of Anthony Ivy, or if we were talking about Caden Saunders, who's running already fast. He's already in the 4.4s, somewhere in that area. You're not saying that they think he's going to be a 4.3 guy because what they can do with conditioning and stuff like that. It's more about the development curve of younger guys.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, look, okay. Anthony Ivy and Caden Saunders have been working with speed specialists for years now, so like they are kind of starting to reach, I don't want to say ever reaching their max, because I'm sure they're going to get up here and work with Galt and they're going to get faster somehow, because that's why these guys are the best strength trainers in the country and, in some sense of the word, the world. So yeah, I'm sure Caden can improve a little bit, but just the general mindset is when they look at, young freshmen in high school and they come up here and they run a 4.8, in Penn State's mind, okay, he could potentially be a 4.6, a 4.5 maybe, if he really commits himself and keeps working and improving. I mean, they just kind of always see, okay, you got 3 years left. You run a 4.8. Well, if you improve by a tenth of those years, you can get into a speed area that we think works, I guess you would say. So
okay.
That's really the main thing. Yeah, I don't when you're 18, yes, you can improve a little bit, but I don't. Yeah, Caden Saunders, I don't think he's gonna be running a 4.2 or anything like that.
Right. There's a limit on what that works.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But it's more so just projecting, kids going through puberty, I guess it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a health person. I guess that's the right word, but just kind of, it's more so, that, and just kind of projecting, okay, well, he hasn't really gotten any training yet, like when you're a freshman in high school, yeah, you'll lift with your team a little bit, but you're not working with speed specialists yet. I mean, I'm sure there's definitely some with those crazy dads out there who are doing it when they're like 7th, 8th grade, but sorry, crazy dads, for who are watching. I'm sure one of you is watching right now. But,
there's a reason, okay?
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, it's just more so looking at young kids and thinking, proper training, proper technique, growing physically, getting stronger. You can knock off a tenth every year. So that's just kind of their mindset. Just from talking to people, that's something I've kind of gathered over the years.
Okay, I think that's really important for Penn State fans to know, because when you hear some of these numbers, and we're all used to thinking about college and NFL numbers when it comes to the combine, or it comes to Bruce Feldman's freak list, but these are guys that are still developing. So I think that's important for people to know and understand, so they can kind of do the adjustments in their head and say, oh, wow, okay, so yeah, I see what they're saying there. So thanks for that information. I think that's super cool.
Yeah, it's just something I started talking to people about, well, it was more so, I've talked to them about it before, but really this summer, with camps, we didn't have any camps the year before. So the camp circuit this year was, I don't think I've ever bugged sources more in my life, about trying to get so much information after 16 months of nothing. So that was just kind of one thing I picked up on. And I've heard that before, but I just talked to multiple people about it this year. And that does seem to be really, with Penn State staff, yeah, they believe that. But I think that's kind of a thing that, a lot of coaches across the whole country, kind of a mindset that they have, or they believe in when trying to project. Yeah.
Are we ready to get to best bets now?
Yeah, sure, man. Let's do it. I'll make it kind of quick. I've been dragging these out so long, so we'll try and roll through them.
Okay, so it's a running joke now, and I'm gonna get to it here. Let's see if I actually got the right graphic this week. I think so. That looks right.
Alabama, BYU, Florida. Hey, you did it. Good job, bud.
Hey, broke the curse.
14 and 14. Man, I should be like 19 and I don't know, whatever that number would be. 9. I don't know, whatever it would be. But yeah, so let's roll into it. South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, Texas A&M, Boise State, BWI. That's my. It's not a MAC this week, but my crappy.
It's got the
game,
MAC feel about it.
Although that's actually on ABC at 3:30, so actually a bunch of people will probably watch. Oh no, they won't because they'll be watching Penn State. Never mind. Vanderbilt and Florida, and then Penn State, Iowa. So these are my games. Okay, I'll start by saying this is a really hard week.
Yeah,
really hard week. I struggled. I put way too much time into this week. I mean, I put hours into trying to find 5 games that I really liked, and it's either going to be 5-0 or 0-5. So I'm just warning you right now.
there's some extreme stuff on here. I mean, the Florida line. Oof.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So where do you want to start?
Yeah, it's a big one. I'll tease you. Let's start with that. Vanderbilt sucks. How's that? There we go. There's my analysis. Vanderbilt sucks.
Okay.
All right. So I tried to pull some analytical stats for this game. Okay. Vanderbilt ranks 100th or worse in 7 of 10 key analyticals that people like to use. So, for example, defensive EPA, which is estimated points added.
Yep.
Offensive passing and rushing success rate below minus 100. Defensive passing, rushing, and success rate minus 100. Defensive net points per drive. I forget the exact number, but it's under 100.
Mm-hmm.
And then is it echo ratio? You know a little bit about analytics. I think it's echo ratio. It's basically what it does is it measures how productive your drives are throughout the game. And they're terrible. Okay, they're like 115 or something out of 128. Florida, I want just in compared Florida, and Florida's top 40 in pretty much all of those. Okay, and a lot of them they're top 25 in. But let me just get real. I'll just get real simple with this. Florida got exposed last week by Kentucky. Florida never loses to Kentucky, so I expect them to be pissed off, ready to roll. And oh, by the way, the last time they played Vanderbilt at home, they won 56-0. Okay, so I expect if Florida can't win this game by 40 plus, like I'm just giving up on best bets. Okay. Because I think they should absolutely destroy Vanderbilt. Georgia, who does not have an elite offense, yes, they do have an elite defense, but they do not have an elite offense. They won 62-0. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, come on, Florida.
So we're being kind with the 38 here.
I mean, I looked at last time they played 56-0. I can see Florida reaching that again. Maybe 48-7, something like that. I don't know, but yeah, I'm gonna lay 38. Okay. And I don't normally lay 38. I normally take 38. Like just growing up, I'm always down to take a ton of points, even when the team stinks. But I think Vanderbilt really stinks. So I'm gonna lay it. And hey, let's see what happens.
Florida with a 38. Okay, what are we going to next?
Let's go. We'll save Alabama. All right, Tennessee minus 10. Okay. South Carolina's offense is bad. Very bad. They rank 120th in offensive rushing success and 95th in passing success rate. Okay, like they are not having any success on offense. Tennessee, they're up and down with their passing game. They're throwing some picks now. I think Joe Milton's been sat, I believe, and he was a big reason for that in the beginning of the year. But dude, they're running the ball really well. I mean, they are 4th in the country in offensive success rate. Tyon Evans? I think that's how you pronounce it. And then Jabari Small, both are really running the ball well for Tennessee. They're I think they're both averaging over 5 yards per carry. And South Carolina's defense, they can't get off the field on third down, man. They are ranked 111th nationally in third and fourth down success rates. I mean, I see it like this. If Tennessee can consistently run and get 4, 5, 6 yards per carry, and South Carolina can't get off the field, I think 10.5. I'll lay it. And normally, again, I'm not a heavy favorite person. I am normally fully in the underdog boat, but I see this kind of being like a 27-13 kind of game. South Carolina just is really struggling on offense. If they score 2 touchdowns, I'd be shocked. And if they score 2 touchdowns, they might cover because Tennessee's not going to be throwing the ball a ton. They're going to be running. But I see this, like I said, 27-13. That's kind of where I see it. Maybe 31, maybe 31-13. In a world, from what I've seen from South Carolina so far, they cannot score 2. I don't see them getting to 17 in this game. No way.
So I have to ask, because this is twice in a row now that you've bucked some trends here. I agree with you on all these points. And I've agreed with you on almost everything you've talked about, other than we've talked way too much LSU for my comfort so far this year.
I
Because
didn't take Wisconsin this
I'm
week.
afraid of them for putting any money on anything that has to do with LSU. You're not pressing on these, are you? Like you're not looking like the 14-14 and trying to gain some ground.
Hey, how dare you say I'm pressing? I'm never pressing. I'm an expert gambler. No, I'm not an expert gambler. I'm an insider for recruiting. I won't claim to be an expert gambler, but
you're our sharp. So everyone's got we're building the Blue White Illustrated Network. You've got multiple hats, including the one you're wearing right now. So you're my sharp again. You're my insider. You're my sharp.
Well? Greg Pickle's doing well. We should get. We've been going back and forth on games all season. I feel like he's like 22-3 against me. Like he's been crushing me in games where we just debate. Maryland last week, like I was totally on Maryland and he was totally on Iowa.
Yeah.
And we saw how that played out. So maybe we should get Pickle doing best bets. I'll tell you what, if I drop to 6, 7, 8 games under, we're gonna swap me out and put Pickle in. How's that?
Okay, I'll have to come up with something snappy for him because
Pickle's best bets. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Well, something about the pickle
Everything
jar.
rhymes with pickle.
Know.
We can figure it out.
So what we got next? We got Alabama, Texas A&M.
Yeah, let's do Alabama, Texas A&M.
Okay.
I mean, look,
up here,
I'm really kind of torn on this one a little bit, but look, Alabama -10 for the first half. Like they have been covering first half spreads for like 3 years straight now. I wish I had the exact number. I was trying to find it today, but I know they're like hitting like 74% on or 75% on first half trends, which is really good. So I think I'm going to take Alabama -10.5 for the first half. But I also like Alabama -16.5 for the game. But just for the first half stats, Alabama's outscoring their opponent 73-3 in the first quarter. They're outscoring them 149-19 for the first half so far this year. I like those numbers against a Texas A&M team that can't move the ball right now. Like they can't do anything on offense.
Yeah,
their defense has talent. They're just not clicking. So there's one other thing too about this game that really interests me. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember this, but back in May, Jimbo Fisher ran his mouth. Do you know what I'm talking about with Nick Saban? Okay,
I don't remember specifics now.
Jimbo Fisher was asked about this game back in May, and here was his quote: "We're going to beat his ass." Nick Saban, dude.
Yeah.
And you know how Nick Saban responded? In golf? It was classic.
In
Go
football?
Look it up on YouTube. It is a classic response. I love it.
I remember this now. Yeah.
A&M is struggling. Bama, like I haven't been on the Bama train. I've been on the Georgia train all year. Okay, so I'm still kind of
Night Train to Georgia.
What's that?
Isn't that a song? Night Train to Georgia or something?
Yeah. Oh, it's a line in the song at least. I don't know. It might be the full song, but I'll definitely lay the 10 here. Lay the 10.5. I think it is for the first half, and I like -16.5 for the game too. So. Yeah, I'm on Alabama. I think they'll be motivated this week. I think Jimbo Fisher looked really dumb running his mouth, and this team is not functioning well right now. They're not a unit. They lost their quarterback, and they're by the way, this game's on CBS at 8:00. Whoever scheduled this game to be 8:00 on CBS, like probably deserves to be fired because that looks like a terrible. CBS only to clarify, CBS only gets one night game a year. Okay, so like they try to make sure that this is going to be the premier game, and they only had to schedule this like 2 weeks ago. Okay, so it's not like they had to schedule this back in March or May or whenever those games all come out. So I just find that funny that this is going to be the night game, and this is going to be. I think it's going to be similar to LSU Alabama last year, which was a night game, and Alabama just destroyed them. Yeah. So I'll lay the points here. We're laying a lot of points this week, and that's not me, but got to try something, man. I've had 2 back-to-back losing weeks. We got to try something new.
When it comes to this stuff, you're at 500, and I've got no problem with that personally. I know that's not sexy, but we're in it for the long run. We got a full season of this to do. Got a full season.
I want to be above 500 though. I would have started this if I didn't think I could get above 500. I've done this long enough where, okay. One last thing I'm going to say is my whole life. Okay. I've always been really good on Saturday, and then I give all my money back on Sunday. Like that's been my whole life. Okay. Kick ass in college football, give it all back in NFL. This year, it's the total opposite. So I think it's totally because I started this trend where I lose a bunch of money on Saturday and then I win it all back on Sunday. I think it's because I started best bets, but who knows?
We're going to have some executive director conversations because I don't need you losing money at home.
Oh, dude, I'm not don't worry.
No,
it's good, man. We're good. We're good.
So Boise State BYU is our next one, right? And that's our last one before we get to the game of the week.
I'll make it quick. I mean,
okay.
Boise State has really struggled on offense this year, man. They're 80th right now in yards per play, 123rd nationally in rushing yards per attempt. Okay, they are really struggling on offense, and BYU is a freaking train right now. I mean, they are kicking ass over Utah and Arizona State. Sorry, I think I swore for like the third time in this podcast. Sorry about that. They're 5-1 against the spread against Boise State over the last 6 years. BYU's at home. They're in a nationally televised game on ABC. I mean, when's the last time you saw BYU and on ABC? So they're getting the national spotlight here, and I don't think 5's that much. I think the spread should be closer to a touchdown. I'll lay the 5.
So my in-laws and my wife are from Utah. So
they're anti BYU. Sorry.
Yeah. So there is your logic is great, but I am maritally obliged and obligated to say that BYU is going to lose by 30.
Well, let your Utah family know that I bet Utah against BYU this year, and it didn't work out too well for me. Okay?
Yeah, they're real bad. So I was told by them that who's the Baylor quarterback that transferred there? I forget what his name is.
Off the top of my head, I know who you're talking about, but
but so Baylor quarterback that had been there forever with Matt Rule, and they're like, yeah, he transferred in. He's a really good quarterback. I was like, no, he's not.
Just like the South Carolina guy that went there 2 years ago. Yeah, that worked out well.
Yeah, so it's a rough year for them. So let's get to the main event. Let's get Penn State, Iowa up on the board. What are your thoughts about this game?
Oh, this is just like Wisconsin, man. I hate it. I have no interest in betting this game. I'm upset that I even have to pick it because I don't know what to pick. I don't. I'll say this. There's two stats that really impact me here. Penn State won 6 of the last 7 until last year, including last year. They won 6 of the last 7, including 6 straight. And Franklin was 4 in a row up until last year. So that's good, right? I mean, that makes me think that there may be a real kind of coaching edge over Ferentz. But when I look at the stats, everything points to Hawkeyes. Okay, the Hawkeyes are 14-1 in their past 15 when they're favored by 4 points or less. And James Franklin's 0-7 against top 5 teams all time. Okay? So I will add this, though. Both teams are 8-2 against the spread in their past 10, which is good. Both teams are covering spreads, so that's good. And Penn State is 8-2 as an underdog in its past 10. So that's pretty good as well. I will not bet this game in real life. I don't really bet Penn State as it is, but I would not touch this game in real life.
Yeah.
I don't like the under or the over either at 41. I'm going to take Penn State -2 for best bets, which is probably going to be a jinx now, so don't be mad at me if it doesn't go their way. I do think Penn State's definitely the more talented team, like you said, and I think they have more ways of winning, like kind of you said at the beginning. So I totally agreed with that. Obviously, Iowa has lived off of turnovers, and probably half of those turnovers were gifts. But
can I give you a quick recap of what I've seen so far? And this comes almost directly from what I watched last week with the 7 turnovers versus Maryland and Talia Tagovailoa. And it was right after I was coming fresh off of watching Sean Clifford's film back and watching the game. That interception came early in the game. And there was a bunch of stuff that Indiana did that were complex coverages, covered it in my film room about how they do a lot of different things. When he wasn't sure what he was seeing, he didn't throw the football. Talia Tagovailoa just kept chucking it. And Sean Clifford's not going to do that. We've seen that this year from him, that he's proven through 5 games, if he makes a mistake, he won't make it the second time. He's learned that lesson. So this is not going to be a 7-turnover game. And it is going to be largely on him to make the right decisions, and maybe he'll make a mistake, but it won't be an unforced error. That is not going to happen this week. So if you're thinking they're going to get a deluge of turnovers, that's not going to happen. At least that's not for what I've seen of him.
And the one team who hasn't gotten or hasn't given the ball away a lot against them was Colorado State. who was winning at the end of the first half, and I think they were winning. I think Iowa took the lead kind of at the end of the third quarter, but and Iowa State's not, or Colorado State is not good. Like I've watched them multiple times this year. They are not a good team. So
every drive in the first half of that game was at least 7 plays until they scored on a 5-play drive to end the half. Mm-hmm. So they were able to play ball control against Iowa and that defense. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting is we had John Steppe on from the Gazette. He said that the quarterback for Colorado State, one of the reasons that they weren't as effective in the second half is he was injured. Like he was clearly limping, and his mobility was a part of that game. So I do think that, and this is something we talked about yesterday on the Daily, Nate Bauer and I, that the scrambling is going to definitely be a part for Sean Clifford. And Iowa has not seen a guy with the combination of skills as a passer and a runner that they have. You know, Brock Purdy's a good quarterback, and that's probably a fair comparison, but it's not like that team has the level of talent, as you pointed out, that Penn State does.
Yep. So I'll take the 2. Originally, I was thinking, screw it, let's go under. But everybody's thinking under, so that makes me think it's going to probably be like 24-20. You know what I mean? Because the over-under is 41. I mean, when I first came out, I was thinking, oh, yeah, under. And then all I've heard all week is under. Everybody's saying under, and that makes me think, maybe we shouldn't do that. That's usually how you win. So
you got to properly zag when everyone else is zigging.
Yeah. I've been okay with that over the years. Right now, I'm in a little bit of a rut, but we're still 14, or we're still 500, 14.
No matter what, you're my sharp man. So
thanks, man.
I love this segment. I'm learning so much when it comes to this stuff. So I appreciate you coming on and educating, at the very least, educating me on the BWI Daily Edition about what we should be doing with our money this weekend. And this is going to turn around. I feel it. I feel this is going to be, and I don't think 14-14 is bad whatsoever. So Ryan Snyder, our recruiting
I just
insider,
have a winning record. That's all. So.
And our sharp here with the best bets. Thanks for everything. I know we got to run, so I want to wrap this up today. Thanks for coming on the show.
Every Friday, man. Love it.
That'll do it for the BWI Daily Edition. Don't forget, coming up tomorrow after the game, BWI Live. Tom Hannafin and I are taking you through Penn State, Iowa. Whatever happens in the game, we'll be breaking it down. Subscribe. Say that again. Please. Subscribe to the
they're doing great with it though, man. We're really happy with people subscribing. So
it's been awesome. I'm the Tom Brady of never being satisfied with stuff, so thank you everybody. But we got to keep this motorboat going. So bwi.rivals.com. Make sure you subscribe where you get podcasts and on YouTube. We will be back on Monday.